Hey guys, I brought the camper over to Houston this week. Didn't really intend on making this a video, but you know I always bring my camera and I always like to look at gauges, and so I ended up seeing some things that I thought would be interesting as we made our journey over there. And then when we got to the campsite, it's a beautiful campsite. It caters to patients of MD Anderson there, which is where we're going to be probably holding up for the next 5-6 weeks or so while my wife goes through some a trial there. But as I say, I didn't really think we'd make a video, but there are some interesting things on here. I thought that well, I always think anything to do with gauges and engines and that kind of thing is interesting, but we'll see what you think about it. So here we're approaching the Lake Charles Bridge, which is a fairly steep bridge. You can see I'm in 5th gear, locked up there, which is like the way I like to tow. I'm doing probably 65 there. I notice I'm going to slow down. Notice I shift down to 4th gear before I hit that hill because I know I'm going to need 4th on that bridge. And so like I mentioned in one of my last videos, if instead of waiting and having that transmission hit that gear hard while you're on that incline, this damn Chevrolet gets in my way or whatever it is, Ford. But I was going to try to use my exhaust auto mode coming back down, but didn't get a chance to do it. But anyway, we're pulling in 4th there. You can see exhaust temperature goes up as you go up the hill. Now we topping the hill and it's free sailing. Then I'm going to shift it on out of there and get on down the road. You can see no matter what you do, you always have exhaust pressure. That's down at the bottom right. And of course you're going to have some back pressure just from the engine exhaust manifold, but you're also going to have back pressure right there. It's just about 0. But you're also going to have back pressure, 0 being atmospheric, 14.7. You're also going to have back pressure held by the VGT turbo just to feed the EGR system. Okay, I promise I will not say anything else about the damn EGR system the rest of the trip here. But that trip to Houston is a grueling trip. It is, as long as I've been coming to Houston in my lifetime, and I've been to Houston many did I say many times? I've never been to Houston that there was not road construction, and I'm sure any of you guys that have made that trip can verify that. But nonetheless, it was 101 degrees that day. Pulled about 65 the whole way. Good trip. Truck ran great as usual. Never had any issue with it. Never shut it off the whole way. I like to leave it run when we make stops to use the restroom or pick up a drink or whatever. I leave it idling because that that turbo is really hot. Well, you can see it's 876 degrees, and you would not want to shut your engine off with that turbo that hot. My rule of thumb is below 400 degrees. And that would take about 5 minutes probably, which is what the manual tells you, and that's about right, 5 minutes or so. You can see that temperature underneath it, 835. That's the temperature coming out of your DPF filter, or DP filter, as someone reminded me, the diesel particulate filter. But nonetheless, it all equals out as you get down the road. The exhaust is a little bit lower right now, but it'll vary, and eventually they'll both become one and the same. But you can see I'm in 5th, locked up there. I thought what was interesting, I've done this once before, but if you note the temperatures there, in fact right there they're exactly the same. The temperature just works from the engine back down the exhaust through the DOX units and then through the DPF. But as you can see right here, kind of playing around in just a second here, I'm going to shift it on into 6th gear, and we're going to note that exhaust temperature as we do that. Okay, so I just shifted it into 6th gear. We're locked up in 6 tow mode. We're doing 65 miles an hour. That's about the minimum speed that you can run with these 342 rear ends. And this is a 2500 Ram Cummins, by the way, if you don't know that. But you can see that exhaust temperature climb up as you head toward the more of a lugging. And I use that word very cautiously because some people say, no, it's not lugging, it's not lugging. And it's not lugging. But it does increase your exhaust temperature as you load the engine more. And no, the total load is the same, moving down the highway 65 miles an hour. That's true. But the engine itself is loaded more in 6th gear than it is in 5th gear. And if you look back, in fact, I'll put a link on some of the testing that we did on that, and it definitely bears it out, and you can see it here also. So you can see here that the in 6th gear you're running about 100 degrees more exhaust temperature, which is not bad at all. And by the way, there's no need for active regens when you got this kind of exhaust temperature. And that's the difference on my truck between 5th and 6th, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust temperature. You do get slightly better fuel economy in 6th gear than you would in 5th, because you're turning lower RPMs. There is more load on the engine, but as it all fleshes out, you do get a little bit better fuel economy, and that's one of Cummins' rock solid rules. Right now we're turning probably 1500 RPM, 1600, right in that torque range. But it's an interesting observation. You can run it either way. This is flat ground here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with running in 6th gear as long as you're locked up like that. And as I say, I think 65 is probably about as anything below that, and you're going to see that exhaust temperature go up even higher, believe it or not. But even at the cost of a few RPMs, higher RPMs, and a little bit better fuel mileage in 6th gear, I still prefer to pull in 5th gear, because if I hit a overpass or a little bridge or something, it's going to want to shift down. It's just a little bit too really, probably if you ran 70 miles an hour, you could get away with the 6 a lot better. And my tires aren't rated for that and on my camper, and so I keep it to 65, and 5th works out really well for me. I can't really see any major fuel economy difference, if any, but that's one of Cummins' rock solid rules, is the lower the RPM, the better the fuel mileage, until you get to a point where you're lugging. You can see here in a moment I'm going to shift down to 5th gear, and you'll see that 948 start to immediately drop as you take that load off the engine. And there she goes there. But as I say, you will get a little bit better fuel economy according to Cummins. The engine is turning more RPMs, but it's not working as hard. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But you can see it dropping there, and it'll go on and drop back down to probably about where we were at. Like I said, it's 101 degrees right there. It's a scorching day. You know, just a miserable outside, but everything worked beautiful as usual on the Ram. And here's some of that road construction and barriers, those concrete barriers there, and very, very narrow roads, and you got barely just enough room for your 8-foot wide camper and a 18-wheeler alongside of you, and there's times when your butthole is just grabbing at the seat because it's such a it's such a hairy situation. But this is typical Texas I-10 situation here, and it's been like this, like I say, as long as I've been coming to Houston, my entire life. And yesterday I was 71 years old, so it's been quite a few trips. Here we're pulling into the campground there. That's on South Main Street in Houston, south of the 610. That is one big toy hauler there. Got a Ford pulling it. Looked to me like he's squatting a little bit. I'll show you another picture of him later on there. But this is one fine campground right here. I mean, they've got some beautiful rigs in this thing. Look at this little casitas right here to the right. But you know, it's typical. You're kind of on top of each other, but boy, is it well maintained. They even have a shuttle that runs all day long back and forth to the various hospitals in the area. Free shuttle, which is part of the campground there. And of course, they've got full services. You can look at some of these campers here. We'll just make a little quick trip through the campsite just to kind of show you. You're going to see a lot of Rams in this campsite here. Anybody that thinks that Ram is playing second fiddle to Ford or Chevrolet would be pretty surprised here, because they I would say probably Ram was number one in terms of the number of trucks. I didn't do an official count, with Ford being a close second and Chevy being quite a ways back. But you know, they all well represented. There's a Ram there. What amazed me was some of the huge rigs being towed by some of the little bitty even 1500s and that sort of thing. But you can see that's a Ram there. There's a Ford, Chevy on the right, a couple of Fords. There's another Ram on the left. A lot of beautiful fifth wheels in here. Big motorhomes, $300,000-$400,000 rigs, I'm sure. There's a Ram. Now, of course, there's a few Toyotas and things like that. But the campgrounds are really well kept. It costs us $560 a month, and you pay your electricity for the spot that we had. There's a little lake in there that you can fish. There's another Ram dually pulling that big camper there. There's another one. You can see Ram is definitely in there. Ford is too, but I believe Ram has a few more than the Fords. There's a Chevrolet There's that lake back there. Another ram on the right there. Just full of beautiful campers though. Anyway, you kind of get the picture there. I'll close this up, guys. I just wanted to give you an idea of if you ever looking for a spot. It's about $50 a night if you pay by the night, but they do have monthly rates, and God forbid if you ever do have to to come in here for looking for a place for medical reasons. There's a nice ram dually there. It's an excellent place. They cater to people that go to these hospitals around here, and they're really well managed. I mean, they've even got a little girl that'll walk your dog for you. If you want to leave your dog in your camper, and she'll come around and if you leave her the key, she'll come and get the dog and walk it and that sort of thing if you're going to be going all day long. So this is really a nice place. We're really happy with it, and it's going to save us a lot of money on motels. And as I said, it's also a gated campsite, very secure. You have to have a password to get in, and they stay on top of that pretty good. They've got free Wi-Fi, and it works, and free cable, and so it's a pretty handy spot. It's about 5 miles from the hospital, but it doesn't seem like it's that far because it's just right down Main Street, and Main Street kind of turns into alternate 90, and it's a 4-lane, and you can just zip on down there. But we used the shuttle as much as we could this week. I did take a rock on my windshield, and I mean it was about a golf ball size rock, and it don't look like it did chip it, but it don't look like it's a crack that's gonna run. I hope not. We'll see. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna close this out with just some still shots of the campground. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, adios.